grim darkness of the far future. My name is Alex.
My name is Vangel.
And we are back. We apologize for the month-long hiatus. There was some family stuff that came up that just had to be dealt with, but we have been busy in the interim. My God, the foundries of Vol have been cranking on all cylinders, and as have the manufactorums of the Lost Sons of Cadia.
Not lost. They've again been found.
Yes, we've been super busy. We've managed to get a game in, a very eye-opening game for both parties, I would say. But yeah, we've been we'll break down the game and what we've learned, but before we do that, just want to talk about what we've been up to in terms of the hobby, because this has probably been one of my, at least for me, I'd definitely say for you too, one of the most prolific periods of hobbying I've had probably in the past couple of years.
Definitely. The show itself has really pushed me into the studio, and I've really been enjoying the hobby commitments that we've made on the show and following through on those. Starting with the biggest project I ever did, which was the Baneblade. Oh, hey, Nimmy. So yeah, I guess I'll go first talking about some of the hobby progress.
Yeah.
So I probably should go back and check the last show to see what progress was included on that one, but I believe I talked about the Sentinels, which I had finished, 2 Chimera, which I overhauled, and since the last episode though, I've built 2 Hellhounds, primed them, and I built a Hydra, and I completely painted that one. Just some transfers and some touch-ups and details. All of these units that I was just talking about, the Hellhounds and the Hydra, I actually have 2 Hydra now, or I have 1 more to build. So the goal is going to be, I have 2 Hydra and 2 Hellhounds and 2 Chimera, all for the Bloody Shoulder, which is my Kasrkin, basically a Kasrkin faction, like a small entourage.
Yeah, sort of a sub-faction within your overall army.
Mm-hmm. And that's been a lot of fun to do. It's really been interesting to deviate from the paint scheme that I've had for so long. Again, all thanks to Thibaut and his suggestion to incorporate different color schemes in your army and find a way to make it fit. One thing I'll say is that the colors are nowhere near as brilliant as Thibaut's army.
Yeah.
So it's, when I'm looking at it, I'm like, I want something else to pop on it, and I will figure that out eventually. But for right now, we're gonna get the broad strokes in and get them painted up, and it's been super cool. Yeah, and using them in the last game, I used the Hydra in the last game, and plan on bringing the Chimera and the Hellhounds to the next game of the campaign.
Yeah, I'm sort of in a similar boat to you in terms of adding units with a different paint scheme, because your Bloody Shoulder, like, veteran army is basically the same color scheme as my sort of Olatok themed, Ranger themed Eldar sub-faction that I have, that I call the Umbral Watchers, and I'm adding a pair of Warwalkers for the next game, and like I said, they're in all black. But one of the things that I'm going to do is just try to use some like pop-in transfers. So I'm going to be using like yellow Eldar runes and sort of get a little bit of that Ulthwé, the old school 2nd edition Ulthwé color scheme going, where it's like black, red, and yellow. So I think that'll look pretty damn good. So I've had a whole ton of stuff that I've been rehabbing. So, well, one of them is not a rehab project. One of them is a Wraith Knight. So I have been collecting bits. I did my first 3D printing. I didn't 3D print it, but I found an STL and had a unique head for my Wraith Knight printed. I ordered offline a Warp Hunter upgrade kit and used that as a weapon swap for the Wraith cannons, the heavy Wraith cannons on the Wraith Knight, which I think looks 1,000 times better and is just way more iconic than the standard Wraith cannons that come with the Wraith Knight. Definitely a missed opportunity there with the GW's original Wraith Knight. Made some kind of odd choices. Like the head is very weird on the Wraith Knight, in my opinion. It always has been. It sits kind of weird, and the heavy Wraith cannons, I don't know like why they didn't just go with like a D-cannon style weapon for the Wraith Knight. But swapping those weapons out really makes a huge visual upgrade for the Wraith Knight. It like I'll post pictures, like some work in progress pictures, but it basically looks like a mini Phantom Titan now, which looks really cool.
Yeah, I think the face also really stands out as opposed to just like the blank faceplate. I think the size of the head is about the same in terms of like how tall it is and stuff, but having like the face focused like as like something you can tell where it's looking and that type of thing.
Yeah.
Even has like a regal and majestic character. I think it's like a lot cooler, definitely. Although I didn't have a problem with the old Wraith Knight face.
Yeah.
Until I saw this one, I was like, oh, that's definitely cooler.
I didn't have an issue with it until I did a Scathach Wraith Knight on commission, and it's still like the sort of glass dome type head, but I don't know, it's just weird. The original Wraith Knight head is just sort of sloped so steeply back.
Yeah, actually, I agree.
It almost looks like a spirit stone mounted on its shoulders. Like, it's just, I don't know, it's just not robust enough. I don't know, there's just something off about it. But anyways, that was a huge project. I did a really cool scenic base for it. I'm really excited to show you guys that. In addition to that, I finished up 10 Corsairs. And after my last game, I realized I had a drastic lack of anti-tank in my list. Not being able to take 6 Hornets like I had planned when I was revamping my army in 9th edition was huge. So I added 10 Wraith Guard to my list, or to my collection. So I stripped, repainted, drilled out all the arms and all that business, because all of the, I don't know why, but all the Aeldari models, like the arms and legs, are just flat surfaces. There's no ball joint on them, so they're maddening to put together. So I just went all out, did everything the proper way, pinned all the arms and legs, the guns, the whole 9 yards. So
You want to talk about your Corsairs?
Oh yeah, and I finished painting up all 10 Corsairs, and that was a huge painting project, and I'm really stoked about the way they came out, and I'm really looking forward to getting them into the fray in future games. So that's a ton of models. By the next time we record, I'll definitely have the Wraith Knight and the Wraith Guard finished. Well, I got to get those Warwalkers done too, but I kind of cruised through Ghost Warriors after painting up like a trio of Wraith Lords. I can pretty much paint up a Wraith Lord in a single day, which is fast for me. So I've got that down, and those are nice, easy canvases to work with. So really excited for my Wraith host. By the time this is done, I'm going to have a Wraith Knight, a Wraith Seer, 3 Wraith Lords, 10 Wraith Guard, 10 Wraith Blades, 2 Spirit Seers, and a potential second Wraith Knight. I mean, I have a second Wraith Knight. I just got to finish rehabbing it together. So, wicked pumped.
Something I forgot to mention, and this was this was something that I had started a long time ago, and ordered a long time ago, and up on my hobby table I have like my lamp, and up on the lamp I put like projects that I need to focus on, and one of them that I've had for a long time is Kodiaz, Inquisitor Kodiaz.
Oh yeah.
And so I've had him up there just like in all his shiny metal glory, completely unprimed and stuff for a long time. and had him just like sitting on double bases, like one of the larger bases,
The 40 mil.
40 mil, and then I had like the old smaller base up on top of that. What I did was I made a really cool scenic base, similar to what's her name?
Creed.
Yeah, Ursula Creed, very similar to hers. And I painted him up. I just started painting him, and I got pretty far with him. I would say it's like 75% done.
Yeah.
But it's been a long time since I painted a metal model. I've always had issues with the fact that I didn't feel like there was a good leader for, like, a good model for a warlord in the IG. I've never been a super huge fan of any one in particular. But recently, I guess through not having a favorite, I started collecting a lot of them.
Yeah.
So I got Kodiaz, thinking he might be good in 10th edition. He seems okay, but doesn't exactly fit the bill for me as a warlord. But then I also recently got Ursula Creed, who I'm excited to assemble and paint. And I also got oh, sorry guys, a little bit technical difficulties. There's a four-legged meowing monster roaming the premises. But I got Creed, the original Creed, and got him in resin, so I'm excited for that. So I've got Ursula Creed, I've got the original Creed, I've got Kodiaz, and then I've got some company commanders. I also have Lord Solar, and yeah, I'm just excited about those. But it was fun to do Kodiaz, and yeah, that was another little bit of hobby progress. It took me a long time, honestly. I painted a lot of it up to a high detail, and as always left some weird spots where I just did it's just still primer. But just had fun sort of painting whatever part of it I wanted. And so yeah, that's another little bit.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I was looking at the triumvirate of Aeneid on GW's website, and I realized the Visarch's on a 40 mil base, and I was like, holy shit. So I went and I rebased my Corsair Prince, and I made a really cool scenic base. Sort of looks like him, like emerging from like Eldar section of the Webway, and it just looks really cool on a 40 mil base. I sort of dumped out my bits box and used all my sexiest sort of Eldar ruins to make him a really cool base, and did it in my Inari Wraithbone scheme. So it's sort of like pale gray, almost white, with all the sort of blue and green in the recesses. So really happy with how that came out. He looks really cool when he's with his Corsairs now, and my custom Ivrain too. So really excited about the hobby progress. We got some dope characters in the mix, some real standout units, some real centerpiece units from going from super heavies down to elite infantry and all that stuff. So tons and tons of hobby progress, and more to come. Like, we have a really huge terrain project coming up that we're both really, really excited to sort of embark on. So shout out to Wes, Wes from my other show, Infinity Circuit Radio, which we've not uploaded in 1,000 years just because of time zones and all of that stuff. But we've got 2 sets of the boarding action terrain, and for the final mission of this campaign, it's going to be a sort of close quarters Zone Mortalis boarding action mission, which we'll get into in greater detail at some point down the road. But just getting ready to put together that boarding action terrain is going to be a huge project, and we've gotten a ton of inspiration from Eric's Hobby Workshop. The both of us have been going mad on YouTube, just sort of digesting content, trying to stay inspired. And with the stuff that we've been following, it has not been difficult to stay inspired because the hobby is just at another level right now.
Yeah, I would say it's really easy to, as opposed to before the podcast for me, it's like way easier to stay inspired knowing that we have a few true friends, a few battle brothers out there listening. The hobby commitments, as I said, but also just trying to stay informed and looking into certain projects so that we can achieve our own goals. We found some really awesome content creators. Shout out to Wes. Also, Wes, thank you very much for the commissars. Really excited about that. Again, that adds to my now pretty diverse HQ
Cast a character.
cadre.
Yeah.
I mean, they're really, really cool. I've never had a commissar before. I know it's heresy as a IG player, but I've never had one before, so it's going to be really exciting to get those painted up, and it'll be nice to be spoiled for choice. Talking about Eric's Hobby Workshop, he's been so much fun to watch and to listen to. Throwing that on while I'm at the hobby table, and also when we received the kit from Wes, started scheming on putting it together. And for me, everyone knows that who's been listening, everyone knows that I'm a big terrain guy, and I've been looking at the same board for a very long time, and while I love it, I think it's really it's well done. I'm ready to look at something else, something different, and sort of like my own models. I would like to see something with more contrast, which is what we're definitely going to be getting into. Nothing monotone with this one, something really interesting. And not something that anyone's trying to camouflage their way into. So just something where like camouflage doesn't matter. You're indoors, and I think bold colors are going to be king.
Yeah, I mean, I might as well just talk about what we're doing. So, like, the final mission of the campaign, like, the whole point of the campaign is the Eldar are trying to get to this sort of Imperial installation on top of this mountain. And the installation is built around a shrine to the Avatar that was discovered in the heart of this mountain. And so we're going to basically build the boarding action terrain around the sort of containment complex that is housing these Eldar ruins. And I've got all the bits from the Daughters of Cain Altar of Blood. So we've got like the huge like cauldron of blood with the statue of the Avatar over it, the double helix walkway steps, and I got all of the current Eldar god statues. So I've got like the Kurnos statue, I've got the Assyrian statue, the Dark Reaper one, and the one that came with the Incubi. So that's Arhara, the fallen Phoenix Lord. We're going to basically make this walkway with alcoves on either side with a shrine to each of the Eldar gods leading up to the statue of Cain. So pretty ambitious project, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And the mission, that final mission, is going to be for this sort of Eldari kill team to reach the heart of the facility. And I've got to have an aspect warrior that sacrifices himself to the Avatar of Cain, and it'll awaken the Avatar and have like a big Royal Rumble at the end of the mission. So it should be really, really cool, and it should make for an amazing set piece for all that boarding action terrain.
Yeah, also a really interesting end to what is essentially going to be an apocalypse campaign. I mean,
yeah,
because it's wild. We started with 1,000 points. The most recent game, Encounter at Relay Station 849X, was a 2,000 point battle. That was the first official game of the campaign, and then the next game is going to include super heavies. and then ending in a kill team game.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting. So yeah, also it's going to be a lot of fun to do a board made up of all interior spaces, which we've never done before.
Yeah.
It's a wilderness ruin. As we've talked about in the past, we've got sort of 3 stages for our board. It's a wilderness board. It's an Imperial fortification. It's a Eldar ruins. But now, like, we're going to add a completely different element, which is super fun to start thinking about and preparing for.
Yeah, there's going to be a ton of variety just in terms of all the stuff that we've got and variety of ways to play. But yeah, this campaign has been wild. So, like you go from the 1,000-point game to the 2,000-point game. There's one more 2,000-point game, and then there's 2 3,000-point games or more. And then it closes out with Kill Team or Zone Mortalis. And kind of interesting, I bought this book like way back in the day. It was like 7th edition, typical GW, 7th edition, closing out. And they had this book, I think it was called Planetary Onslaught or something like that. And it just basically broke down like the flow of like sort of like how the GW envisions like your standard campaign, where it either opens with kill team action or it closes with it. And like the kill teams are basically going around mopping up. So just kind of a cool thing. It'll be interesting because the next campaign that we've got planned is going to pick up literally where this one, like minutes after the last mission in this campaign ends. So it's kind of be this kill team is going to be sort of like the end and segue into the next campaign. So kind of neat. I think picking up those books is always worth it. Those narrative books are sort of timeless. They're sort of edition agnostic and could just give you a lot of mission ideas and just help you with the narrative flow of things. So, we're only about. We're not even halfway through this one yet, and
we just did the first scenario.
Yeah.
Definitely. Again, I agree. I think that the campaign format is really interesting because it forces you to make certain choices that you wouldn't make otherwise. Like for you and for me in the next adventure.
Oh yeah.
Things are going to be flipped on their head. But before we move past it, do you want to talk about Encounter at Relay Station 849X?
Not really, but I guess we gotta.
Let's do it, brother.
Yeah. So, just want to give huge props to my brother. He won this game big time. He absolutely whacked me. It was a very tough loss after I handed him a very tough loss in the initial one, but it was good. He was definitely due for a win. He did his homework. He brought an awesome list. He played it extremely well. He deployed well, played well, whole 9 yards, and very deserving of the win.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it was a lot of fun for me to see that all the things that I had been looking into really were paying off. I'd spent a lot of time remaking my army, and it wasn't easy to do. So, and also, as I said last time, certain technical aspects of the game are like brain busters for me. So I had to listen again and again. Huge appreciations as what does he say? As his loyal little conscript, Morty and Glory, for providing just great strategic concepts and unit reviews and all of that kind of stuff. And listening to his videos really helped me create a synergy in my list. I'll go ahead and talk about my list a little bit. So I had 2 basilisks, a manticore. I had 2 exterminator Leman Rusk. I had 2 Hydra, 2 Chimera. I had 2 Cadian Shock Troop 10-man squads. I had 2 Company Command squads. I had a 6-man squad of Bulgrins. And I had 3 Kasserkin squads. And I can't leave out, I had 2 Scout Sentinels. And I've actually, I don't know how many times I ever played with. Okay, so if we're talking about units I haven't played with before. Oh, sorry, I also had Ursula Creed. So, using Ursula Creed, that was the first time. She was great. Using the Scout Sentinels, they were awesome. They were, for me, probably, I want to say, like the all-star unit of the game.
They're definitely the pace setters at the very least.
Yeah, well, also, they were using their, oh my goodness, it's, what is their special ability? I can't remember the name of it. It's like advanced recon or something.
Yeah.
And that special ability was crucial.
Reroll, what was it? Rerolling ones?
Yeah, it was +1 it was removing the indirect fire rule,
right,
and re-rolling ones
to wound, I think.
Yes. Gosh, should have it on hand, but
it was essential though in that first turn.
Yeah, it was a daring recon is the name of it, but they were crucial throughout the entire game because they were up on the front line. Actually, their HK missiles and I armed them with las cannons. They were actually doing work.
Oh yeah.
So and their armor is pretty substantial, even though they're just scout sentinels. So yeah, those guys were awesome. And yeah, it was thanks to Morty and Glory, him talking about daring recon and how it benefits your artillery. And then I built up around that using the exterminators and their withering hail.
So good.
And then as well having the Hydra, which were just like dumping out the DACA. They were crushing.
Yeah, any IG players out there struggling against Aeldari, if you're not taking Hydra, you're crazy. They are so powerful.
I would also just say, like, for me, I talked about this in the last episode. I really need to change my mindset with regards to army composition and understanding, like, how to build synergy, and also knowing before the start of my turn, like, which units have to go first, and all of that kind of stuff, like which things will allow me to do what I need to do. That was a big shift for me.
There's an order of operations there that has to be followed.
Yeah, and it's all thanks to Morty and Glory that I was able to piece that together. I did make some snafus in my army build. It was in using the company command squads, and also, well, it was mostly that, because I was just listening on repeat to all sorts of different YouTube, on like Imperial Guard strategy, and I forgot, this is ridiculous, but I forgot that the company commanders cannot issue orders to tanks. It's only tank commanders can issue orders to tanks. So I had got these company command squads thinking they're going to be able to order my tanks to do what I need them to do. Turns out they didn't really need orders. They were doing awesome on their own. Also, I want to talk about that really quick because I was thinking about it for the next battle.
Yes, tell me your plans.
Well, I'll tell you what I don't think I'm going to do is I don't think I'm going to take any tank commanders. It's basically like 40 extra points just to be able to issue an order.
Yeah.
So it's like if I was trying to, and it's like 1-to-1, there's no splash on orders anymore. So I don't think that that's going to be worth it. And I don't really think that it was needed. So yeah, talking about the game, my force was untouchable in this game. Gotta say it. I only lost one Scout Sentinel and due to the reinforcement strategy, I brought it back on in the fourth turn. Everything did what I wanted it to do except for the company command squads. I did also forget to use, even as good as the Hydras were, I forgot to use, I believe the rule was flak battery, which for the Hydras, which would have given me, what's that? What's it? Re-rolling misses. So should have implemented that, but didn't need it this game. I'm sure I will on the next one, but it was a lot of fun, and just really enjoyed the game and looking forward to the next one for sure.
Yeah, so for on my end of things, I definitely made some stupid decisions in list construction. I did not bring a very good list. For some reason, I thought the Warp Hunters did D6 damage, and they only do 3. And so I was counting on them for big anti-tank duties, and they did not perform. So, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So for my list, I brought the Vizark, Ivrain, 10 Corsairs, 2 units of Howling Banshees, both of those units in Wave Serpents, 3 Warp Hunters, 3 Hornets, 3 units of 3 Wind Riders, 2 2x2 Skyweavers, and that was it. And so the purpose of the mission is basically trying to get as many units in my brother's deployment zone as possible. So the Corsairs and the Banshees are basically intended to be dumped out in the latter turns of the game. And although Banshees aren't great, I really like their reach. So even if they got stranded with their advance and charge, they could make like a last turn blitz just to get into my brother's table quarter and really dice up those guardsmen. With mirror blades, they can shred through infantry squads very easily. And the Corsairs with Ivrain have a ton of mortal wound output and all this stuff. So I thought even if they were going in sort of piecemeal with the Exarchs, Ivrain, and actually the Wayseeker, they could kick out a ton of shooting and just like a ton of anti-infantry. But I was thinking those Warp Hunters, despite their 24-inch range, had way more damage output, and that was a huge mistake on my part. Warp Hunters are unfortunately more of like a anti-heavy infantry type unit now, and I think they were even sort of like that in 9th edition. I was just having an absolute brain fart. And so all told, I basically brought, because the Warp Hunters weren't a factor at all, I lost 2 of them on turn 1. I went second, and my brother just absolutely opened up on me turn 1. I lost a Hornet and 2 Warp Hunters on turn 1, and I failed every armor save in turn 1, and almost all of them in turn 2. My dice were just ice cold. I couldn't hit, I couldn't make armor save, and that's just one of those things that happens. So absolutely disastrous turn 1. Bad list construction on my part. So it's just one of those things. Live and learn, and definitely going to try to take some different units next time. I hate to say it, but like the Warp Hunters are definitely getting retired for this campaign. They just don't have a place in this kind of a matchup. Against the World Eaters, definitely. Their firepower is very valuable. But, it's all good. It definitely inspired me to get my Warhost revamped and finish up some rehab projects that have been waiting around for a while. And it just sort of opened my eyes to a bunch of things. And I think one of the other things is that this is a huge brain fart on my part too. Like intellectually I knew this, but it just hadn't quite sunk in yet, is that the fly keyword doesn't allow you to just like fly over terrain anymore. You have to measure. And our terrain is like huge rocky outcroppings.
It's very, very, very tall.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of them are more than a foot tall because visually it looks great and it never impacted the game before except to provide line of sight blocking.
Yeah, like our rationale for the terrain was one, it was good for my brother with all of his artillery. You can hide like an Imperial Knight behind it too, which is amazing, which is great because we have a bunch of knights in our collection: Wraith Knight, Chaos Knight, Imperial Knight. And
Even provides cover to flyers.
yeah, cover you can hide a flyer behind there, so you can sort of survive the addition changes to flyers, and the Eldar can sort of get the cover they need and bounce over it and not feel totally oppressed by Imperial Guard long range firepower. But this change to terrain and the fly keyword is huge, and I was really limited in terms of like what I could do. So it was a huge eye opener. It limited the way I could use my stratagems because I'm very just vehicle heavy. Whereas using Wraith Guard and stuff like that, swooping hawks, all that kind of stuff, there's a ton of play possibilities with Phantasm, where I can be moving stuff in my opponent's my opponent's movement phase and all that good stuff. So it was good. You know, I was due for a big loss. I haven't had a big loss like this in a long, long time. My brother's definitely due for a victory. It's been a long time since he's had a win against me. So it was good. It just got me inspired to reinvest in my army. And we talked about this in previous episodes. I care a lot about, the honor of my army. And, taking a loss like that, you're like, oh shit, I really let my guys down in this one. And also the pressure is on now for this campaign because I didn't realize it until after the game is over. But like, that was a game that I really, really needed to win. It's a sort of fast attack Aeldari ambush type mission. And the next one is I'm going to be the defender. I'm holding a mountain pass against an Imperial Guard armored convoy. And that's going to be a tough one. That's an unfamiliar role for me. And my brother is like armed for bear against Eldar right now. So I got to get my shit together. I really needed to win that game, but I'm going to do my best to win this next one.
I want to talk a little bit more just about like my shift in my thinking with regards to playing the game and all of that kind of stuff. Anyone who's listened knows, as I said in the first episode, I'm not a rules lawyer. I'm not a rules
Doctor.
Rocket scientist. And I didn't realize when I was listening to Morty and Glory what a tournament player he is. And honestly, a lot of that tournament play type stuff I thought was way out of my league in terms of like processing all of those rules and things like that. But it really is not. And, I told all you loyal Imperial fanboys out there who listen to this show just for me, that I was going to make a change and I was going to, adjust my thinking to the 10th edition rules and all of this kind of stuff. And I'm really glad to say that I did. Yeah, my brother made some mistakes in his list, but even if he had made those changes, I feel like I won't say I feel like I still would have won, but I feel like
it would have been a very competitive game.
Yeah, it would have been a really hard game for him regardless. And that's what I'm looking to do. So, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, I definitely learned a few for this last game. Nothing too cheesy, even if my brother says I cheated. And
yeah, he invented his own rules. He was pulling out some. It's like, 9th edition. This is a narrative game. Well, just a little improvisation.
Hey, No, actually, what happened was I was listening to so many videos. When the playlist started auto loading, I didn't realize that I was listening to videos about 9th edition. I'm like, man, these units can do all this. Like, they can do everything.
You know what's funny about that though, dude, is that while we were playing, I was using all this like old ass terminology from like previous editions. I was like,
Yeah.
my Hornets have 4 more hull points. I was like, wait, what? Hull points? What the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
that was like 10 years ago.
Afterwards, I also was like, I was driving home from work, and I was like, no, I think my units should have been able to do something else. Let me look it up. And I was like, wait, no, that was previous editions.
Yeah.
Mostly the ones I found were in 9th edition, but
Yeah.
yeah, great fun. The game was really cool. Also, I just want to read the original overview of the mission.
That's a cool one.
Because I think that it was really portrayed well. Especially because the campaign in the original book doesn't call for like a pregame, which we did do.
Yeah, the pregame was clutch.
But it talks about the pregame in this.
Oh, really? Read
Yeah,
it.
okay, so the overview is this. Eldar Corsairs attacked lightly defended outposts and relay stations on Batalis 3 prior to the arrival of the war hosts of craft worlds Memeria and Alatok. Their objective was to destroy the Ice World's global surveillance network and overstretch its small planetary defense force. This mission represents a raid by the Eldar upon a relay station that has already been reinforced by guardsmen from the Cadian 6th Armored Regiment in response to their earlier attacks. So,
What's crazy is that you actually do play the armored
Cadian
Cadian
6th. I know. And then we also had like previous attacks.
Yeah.
The other thing that is cool and fun for everyone who cares about this kind of thing is that I have a satellite that I made from scratch that I'm really super proud of.
Yeah.
And it was on display. I'll take a picture of it for Instagram for all our listeners. And I would like to actually talk about and show how it was made at some point in the future. But little touches like that on the board really do relay a story.
Yeah.
They relay a story at a relay station.
Yeah. I mean, that piece is one of like, I feel like it's a real set piece. It's not a huge satellite, but it just adds like a lot of visual interest to the board. Like its presence immediately starts telling a story visually.
Definitely. It communicates what it needs to. It looks very Games Workshop.
It does.
You know, it's like 1,000 Games Workshop bits in the bottom of a plastic champagne glass.
Yeah.
But it looks fucking sick.
Yeah. It was a great mission though. It felt like a real rematch too, and like the IG had like learned from their previous mistakes, and the Eldar got sort of punished for their arrogance, which is just like classic 40k. You know,
Definitely. So it was a great game, a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And again, I just want to say for anyone listening who's maybe not super experienced as a player, like you can change the outcome of a game by studying, by making yourself sharp, by chatting with your fellow blokes about different techniques and strategies. And it's really up to you to do it. Don't blame the game for your own shortcomings.
Yeah.
And as much as like we can all rage out about Games Workshop and their trespasses against their loyal sons and daughters, we also need to, just roll with it, go with the flow, figure out what we can do in each edition, because I don't think the format of Games Workshop's editions are going to change. It's only going to continue, and so you need to be ready for that. So yeah, I really am glad that I decided to take. Actually, it's the podcast. In the podcast, I was saying all that stuff, and I said, "All right, well, time to put your money where your mouth is," and I'm really glad I did.
Yeah, I think it also goes to show too that if you just put your mind to it, like my brother's like traditionally has just been a very casual sort of in and out of the hobby type guy, and I have been a super dedicated, always got my head in the game Aeldari player. I currently have been playing the most powerful faction in the game. IG are considered, significantly far away from Aeldari in terms of power. But he came with an awesome game plan, a badass list, executed once the dice started rolling, and freaking handed me my ass. So it just goes to show that you can really overcome anything if you just in Warhammer if you just put your just start doing a bit of homework. I gotta say though, I really did enjoy the game because I've had disastrous turns like that before with sort of underpowered lists, and I really like digging deep and just really throwing all of my tactical acumen out on the board. And even though like in the end it wasn't very close, like it at turn 3, like if I had had a better turn, I feel like I would have been right back in that game. But because I almost took out 2 of the Lehman Russes, and if I had taken out those Lehman Russes, it would have just been like the artillery. Well, it would have been the artillery plus the Hydras, and I could have hidden from the Hydras, and but in the end of the day, I wasn't able to do that, so I just ended up calling it. I think it was turn 4.
Yeah, it was the end of turn 4.
Yeah, just because on your turn 4, you popped my Wave Serpents, and that was just sort of game over.
Yeah, I dumped your command squad on the back of the board.
And the Banshees. So if I couldn't get into the into your deployment zone, it was kind of game over. But I was kind of right there. I felt like if I had had a really outstanding turn, I could have been right back in it. So, but it didn't happen. But it was still fun. Like it was, I was definitely frustrated on turn 1 where I just failed. I mean, it was probably like a zillion armor saves.
Yeah, well, the other thing was, and this goes back to like the synergy of my list, was that those units were all the visible units. So because of daring recon, because of my artillery not being limited by line of sight, and or like the Hydras and the Exterminators and the Sentinels themselves, all the HK missiles, it was like anything exposed on the first turn was going to like catch it hot, and you just had like 3 units exposed. So those were the ones that took my entire army's firepower. So really tough. I mean, it would be hard for anyone to roll enough saves with that amount of DACA, I think.
Well, I literally failed every single armor save. I mean, I probably made like 15 armor saves and failed every single one. So.
I know, but what I'm saying is I actually ran out of units to shoot at.
I know, but if I just passed like a few of those, like I could have kept like one Warp Hunter alive. It would have made a big difference with it having like torrent fire to probably take out those Sentinels and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But
I think that's part of the problem or like the benefit of having IG with like medium armor, like medium strength tanks, like. And I'll put Sentinels vehicles in there. Yeah, like the Hydra, the Chimera, the Sentinels, all those units. They still have like a difficult armor rating to get through and significant amount of wounds. And because they're less expensive, there's more of them to kill. So a lot of challenges.
Yeah, definitely.
To overcome.
That's why I've always liked. I've always loved the Hornets, whether they're powerful or not. Mm-hmm. They're usually pretty affordable. Their purpose is straightforward. They're very singular. They're gunboats. That's what they do. They zip around. They don't cost too many points. They put out way more firepower than they can absorb. And you can take a lot of them. Unfortunately, I can't anymore. I can only take 3. But, that's why I put the Warwalkers in the collection. And I do have a couple of other Dark Horse options that I'm going to employ going forward. I'm playing as Ynnari in this campaign, so I'm going to be dipping into Drukhari a bit, not Ravagers. I'm not going down the Ravager route, but I'm looking at Reavers, and I'm looking at a couple of other things too. So a tough loss can be really inspiring to get some new units and to make sure that you're dialed for the next game. But Dude, did you want to talk about what you liked and you didn't like from your army for this game?
Well, I think I pretty much already covered it. What I didn't like was my mistake with company command squads.
Yeah.
I could have even like taken those guys out and put one infantry squad in their place, and or taking those guys out and putting another tank in there. But honestly, I loved my list.
Yeah.
I really loved my list top to bottom. That was the only mistake that I made. The only thing I would change. And plans for, what's fun and exciting, guys, right now is that I don't have any old units to work on anymore. Now I'm only doing new units. It's like it's been so long. All right, so I'm gonna just we're sort of going all over the place. So I'm just gonna talk a little bit about projects for the future.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm only building new units. So up ahead, I have the Rough Riders. I have Lord Solar Leontis. I have the Rogel Dorn. I have a bunch of really cool Sentinels that I got from a gentleman here in North Carolina. And I'm really excited to feature those. Those are going to be part of the Bloody Shoulder. I have one more Sentinel to make for my Cadian 6th. And yeah, so all of that stuff, some of it's not brand new, but they're new models. But most of it is brand new for me. So just really exciting. I'm planning on building on the synergy in the army that I've built, and going with what's been effective for me so far and what really makes sense for me so far, and I'm gonna have a Canadian command squad. I'm also gonna actually build. I played with accounts as Ursula Creed, and
that free stratagem was wicked clutch.
It is clutch. The original Creed, a little bit of fluff for how I'm going to use him is basically he wasn't slain, he was just lost, and he's returned.
He wasn't slain. He was captured by Trazen the Infinite. He's held in stasis in a Necron vault.
That's a lie. He's free once more and cannot be contained. His stout frame broke his prison imprisonment. But yeah, basically I'm gonna use the original Creed for the Cadian command. The Cadian 6th, and then I'm gonna use Ursula Creed as my warlord for the Bloody Shoulder, and basically I'm gonna play them both with Ursula's rules. But that'll be fun. Yeah, like I said, I'm sort of just going to build on this. I'm going to build on my success in the last game. It'll be fun because in the next game we have super heavies, so I'm going to bring my Baneblade and other units.
Interesting.
Dark Horse units. Secret units. But yeah, honestly, it's the first time I would say I don't want to. I'm not hating any unit that I played with. Also,
usually you're when you're on a losing streak, you're cursing something in your army. God damn it! Why the fuck won't this unit work the way that I want it to work?
Yeah. And honestly, guys, I've been on a downswing for a very long time, just because I'm not committing to doing the studying that's needed.
Yeah.
And a little bit goes a really long way. And you're sitting there painting for God knows how many hours. Why don't you commit yourself to learning a little bit of the rules? Those are words of advice I've given myself as I'm getting a headache and spazzing out listening to the rules. But yeah, Nothing much I would have changed. Really love that list. Love the way I played. Like, I didn't lose a single unit, so I can't really say anything bad about it. The one sentinel, like, no, definitely. Oh, I only ran two. I only ran two sentinels, and they stood out on the front line like the entire time. So
Yeah.
great performance. But what about you?
I mean, obviously they're considered very top tier. It's my favorite unit of all time, but like the Hornets, amazing. I wish I could field more of them. I'm looking forward to fielding all six when we get into Apocalypse games. Warp Hunters, really disappointing. I I disagree with the changes made to them in ninth edition, and they've taken like another hit again in 10th edition, and they're probably on their way out. I wouldn't be surprised if like Hornets and the Warp Hunters are in Legends next edition. Um, so got to try to use some other things. The Wave Serpents are nowhere near as durable as they were in previous editions, like that. The lack of the -1 damage, the transhuman rule that they had last edition too was huge. But I've got the tools to overcome it. I'm happy that like the Wraith Host is is like what I'm playing for the next mission. It really calls for that. It's very thematic, and luckily Wraith Guard are really really good in this edition. The Wraith Knight is super expensive. I'm fairly convinced I'm going to take him for the next mission. If not in the next mission, he'll definitely be in the Apocalypse mission afterwards. But I'm intrigued by his durability. And also the Wraith constructs play like a huge part in the narrative of my army and for the Inari as well. So just a little bit of background. When my Corsair Prince went into exile, after the fallout of various things that happened on his craft world, he, like I said, he went into exile and his entire war host came with him. But he also brought the entombed members of his family within the various wraith constructs. So just in the background of my character, he has like their family comes from like has like a lineage of warriors and seers, and they've all been entombed in wraith constructs, and he took the entire ghost house with him when he went into exile. So always been like a cool thing, sort of hanging out in the background of my army, and it'll be awesome to sort of deploy them in force in these coming missions. So a lot to look forward to going forward. Really hyped for the next game. It'll be interesting coming off a tough loss, and having to follow that up with a somewhat tough mission to sort of try and get a win in. So I'm excited for that, and also it'll help me get my chops with the Ghost Warriors going into the Apocalypse game, because they're going to obviously I'm going to need them in this upcoming in the I think it's like back-to-back Apocalypse games.
Definitely. Also for myself, as I've said, in previous editions, and as I built my army, it was mostly for like a castle up, castle doctrine, and but on the next mission, I'm going to be trying to move my forces forward. That's one of the exciting things about the Bloody Shoulder, is that they're a fast attack army. They're forces that are going to be pushing the enemy line, also engaging their own line breakers. And yeah, you're right, Alex. It's got two back-to-back Apocalypse games.
That's going to be sick. I've only played like one Apocalypse game ever, and it was like one of those huge 5 versus 5 type missions, and you only really play like two
I think we did
turns.
It was you and me against somebody.
Did we?
Yeah, it was that tournament we played. But
wow.
Well, it wasn't actually. It wasn't a tournament. It was a narrative event, quote unquote.
Was it with Mike?
No, it was. Anywho, we did play. It was like my whole army and your whole army against somebody else's whole army, two other people. But anywho, one exciting thing for me is I've never played with my Baneblade. So either one of those missions, like where it's included, is going to be super cool. Especially with the list that I'm bringing. It's going to be kaboom.
Yeah, I'm excited to drop the links in an upcoming game.
I'm excited to drop it too.
That's what you think, bro.
Oh my word.
That Lynx is going to put out the hurt. The Lynx is really cool. I'm really excited to get that into games. I don't think I'm going to use it in this game, but I'll definitely be using it in the Apocalypse game. It's not quite what it was, but it's really fast. It puts out a shitload of firepower. It's got an invulnerable save too, which is good.
Yeah, so, I'm really excited to face all the new units.
Yeah, it should be fun.
And to feature them. You know, because we've been playing the same units for a very long time, you know. And the Lynx and the... We've played with the Wraith Knight before, but not the Wraith Guard. What are they called?
Yeah, the Wraith Guard.
Yeah. And also all the units that I'm bringing now, like the Hydra and the Exterminators and the Baneblade and so many others are totally new. It'll just be really fun and new and refreshing, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, I haven't played like a legitimate Wraith host in a long time. Like I experimented with it in 8th edition. There's actually a couple of articles I wrote back in the day about playing with it, and I saw some posts I made playing against my friends when I was doing we were doing an episode about the Wraith host on Splinter Mind, and so I played like a whole bunch of games with it. It was really fun, but if I'm being totally honest, it doesn't even compare to like what I'm capable of fielding now. I didn't always have the Wraith Knight, or I had like, you know, maybe like 10 Wraith Guard or 1 Wraith Lord. Now I've got 3 Wraith Lords, Wraith Seer, Wraith Knight, 20 Wraith Guard. You know, that's completely different.
Yeah. Hey, just to totally switch gears right now, I want to talk really quick about weapons loadouts and the changes in additions. And going back to what I had said in the first episode, just talking about like the additions, the updates and additions and the trends and all of that kind of stuff. Like, if you're someone who's relatively new to the game, you need to spend the time researching magnetization. Do not glue your sponsons in. Do not glue your hull-mounted weapons in. Do not glue your turret weapons in. Do not glue any weapons in. Do not glue your arms on your Wraith Guard, your Wraith Knights, your anything. I'm chasing a phantom right now of the lost hull-mounted heavy bolter.
Yeah.
Seriously, I took one. I think I don't know where I used it. I used it on a piece of terrain. I used a hull-mounted heavy bolter on a piece of terrain, and I thought, I'll never use this thing. But now I want it. I want it on everything.
Yeah.
And I don't have it because in 9th edition and all previous editions, you were paying points for every single little piece of war gear.
Most of it not worth a damn.
Yeah, also, like, something I left out of the most recent battle, too, was all the hull-mounted... sorry, not hull-mounted. And I know that expression is outdated now, but the heavy stubbers. The heavy stubbers and the HK missiles.
Yeah.
Like, I do have some HK missiles. I have like 4 or 5 sitting in my bits box. And I have like a heavy stubber. And I have a searchlight, which is not actually a thing anymore, but I still fucking want it on every goddamn motherfucking thing. You gotta have those bits, okay? You want it there. And like, please, if you're picking up the game for the first time, or you're even relatively new or reinvesting, like, do not assume that in this version, because X, Y, and Z is the rule, that it will be in the next one. Save all your bits, organize them, magnetize them where you can. If you don't, and you stick with the game, you're going to realize later that you made a mistake. And like having to fix it after the fact is so much harder. So for your own personal joy and the glory and beauty of your models, like, please take my advice as a person who made that mistake. Take the time to do that. And the Wraith Guard is the thing that made me think of it.
Yeah, yeah. Like,
not that that was such like a travesty or whatever, but
no. I mean, the Wraith Guard are fine too, and I think like the thing that I would say about that is if like I regret not taking the time to sort of finish up some of those rehab projects when I did have the time.
yeah, same.
Now, like we're going into Thanksgiving, huge time crunch for the both of us just based on where we work. Got family obligations left, right, and center. Like, this is something I could have done years ago, and it would have been just great to be like, oh, yeah, here we go. I'm just going to plug this in. But instead, I was fooling around with a bunch of nonsense, and I really regret not getting these things done earlier. So my advice is definitely save your bits, keep them organized. Because you know what's great, though? Is because when I was like, okay, I need to go from D scythes to D cannons, because I had 5 cannons, 5 scythes, and I had saved all that stuff. I've got like a really organized bits box with like 15 different cubbies, like one just dedicated to Wraith Guard and Wraith Lords, all Ghost Warriors stuff. So I was able to just go in there, pluck all that stuff out, do the arm swap, and now I could just go. Like, actually, if I was doing this like from scratch, like buying these new or off the sprue, I would not have been done with like 10 of those in 2 days. It just would have been impossible. So yeah, definitely keep your stuff organized. Keep an eye out on your overall plan, like the overall state of progress with your collection. You know, make sure you've got like a balance of anti-tank and anti-infantry ready to swap in and out of your lists, and you're going to be in a good spot and just able to enjoy the game. I'm really glad I own these Wraith Guard, because I'd really be up shit creek if I didn't have them for this campaign. And I really think a campaign really puts the microscope on your hobby journey with your army.
Right.
Like, were you wise in the way you put this thing together? Because I feel like if you're not doing it from a sort of like narrative standpoint where you have like a really balanced collection where you're just like sort of chasing the meta, you're going to be stuck with a bunch of odds and ends that are just hyper focused on whatever was good for one edition, and it's going to be a sort of incoherent mess in the next edition. So I feel like a campaign is a good stress test for your collection and for you as a player.
Also, I would say a good stress reduction, because you know, it sounds like easier said than done to have a well-rounded, like open-ended army build, but actually that comes in every kit that you get. You know, it's up to you to make sure you don't glue all those things down. You don't make those permanent decisions that require you to put your Lehman Russ in the freezer for 2 months so you can rip off the sponsons or the artillery piece. And I get it, like, because I was there. I was like, oh no, it's not going to matter. It's going to be fine or whatever. But like Alex was saying too, is like, if you do just all pickup games and there's no special mission involved, like you could just be beating the guy's brains in from the other side of the board 1,000 times using castle doctrine. Now, granted, I didn't win 1,000 times with a castle up strategy. You could if you were really smarter than me, but like, what about those missions where it's like you do have an objective that's on the other opponent's board, or you do need to be there on the other side of the board at the end of the game, or you need to, whatever the situation is, like whatever your strong point is, like with your current build, start thinking about ways to diversify, the effectiveness of your forces. I think it's really fun. I always wanted to have like an artillery line that like was the artillery line to end all artillery lines. By the way, Games Workshop, get your shit together because there are no artillery units available on Games Workshop.
Dude.
They're all unavailable, so...
Disastrous.
I know. Like, let's go.
Do you know... I don't know if you've, like, heard the story about...
Let's hear the controversy, and I'll tell you this is a candid reaction. Go ahead and tell me a story.
So, GW bought all of these robots to do all the assembly and all this other shit for putting the boxes together and all of that stuff. And there's been huge technical issues with them because they bought the fucking cheap ones.
Oh no.
So they go and
I can't believe it.
So they go and try to buy like the more expensive ones. This is all rumors, but Amazon bought all of the good versions of the robots. So they're stuck with this like malfunctioning fucking warehouse, and there's just been up shit creek. That's why they can't get anything out.
Disclaimer, we don't know if any of this is true, but also it wouldn't surprise me. And even if Amazon didn't steal those in the Amazon warehouse, they're definitely fucking up big time.
Oh, yeah.
Believe me, we know firsthand. It makes no sense. That's why the idea of replacing... I mean, listen, we're talking about Warhammer 40k. Think we don't know about, robots replacing the human soul, the human mind?
There's a reason the Emperor banned AI.
That's right. Purged it.
So I'm going to just have to make do with what we got, because there's a bunch of shit that I wish I could buy for my Eldar. Like, I'd love to get the Incarn, but...
That's a bad idea.
Oh, yeah, that's what you say. But, I'm happy with all the stuff that I've got. I'm really thrilled with the progress in my army. And on the other end of this campaign, my army is going to be fucking huge.
Same.
So...
Yeah, that's the cool thing, is that, like, on the other end of the campaign, if we build our armies for the campaign on the other side, it'll be able to do whatever.
You'll be able to do these, like, really awesome narrative missions and have, like... Because, I mean, this campaign is, like... This is my favorite campaign that I've ever seen in one of these.
It's well-rounded.
Yeah, and it puts you... Like, the missions make sense from, like, a narrative standpoint. There's a lot of, like, break through the enemy cordon, raiding missions, like, huge tank engagements, all that kind of stuff. Like, classic war scenarios that happen throughout, like, real history.
Right.
And if you're somebody who enjoys narrative play... it sucks when you don't have the units either like painted or assembled. Like, a lot of times you own all the shit, but you just don't have it put together and able to play. So I feel like after this campaign, there's really there's no campaign that I could see us not being ready to play. And like, we're even going to be able to do, boarding action and kill team style campaigns going forward. We'll have, you have the Casterkins, I've got the Corsairs, so we can play legitimate kill team games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for the last, just for the listener, like, I think for the last episode of the campaign, then we're going to definitely should do some, like, practice games with kill team, because we're not, like, kill team or boarding action pros.
Yeah.
I don't even know how the game works, honestly.
Yeah. So
we're going to need to sort that out. And I think also for a lot of people, I want to say this real quick, is like, oh no, you're talking about your local hobby club, and you're like, oh no, I've never played boarding action before. I've never played kill team before. I can't lose that final game. We're basing all of this on no prior experience, and we're making a podcast about it. Yeah. Like, and there's obviously millions. I would say billions. I would even say trillions of listeners who are devoted to this, who want to know the outcome. And, but seriously, like, just relax, you know what I mean? Get loose, figure something out, learn something new, and you know, just see where it takes you. You know, I don't want to lose in the end of the campaign because I've never played Kill Team or Boarding Action or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
But the thing is like, if you go through this process, you're gonna have a lot of fun. You're gonna learn something new. You're gonna be well rounded. You're gonna have a fuck ton of awesome terrain, awesome models, experience, and knowledge for the next game.
Yeah, and like you get to do it with friends, and like, you know, most people will get like a whole group together, but even just doing it one other guy is fucking awesome. So
yeah,
this is the most fun that I've ever had with the hobby. Like even during like peak play testing, you know, doing 2 podcasts a month, like, you know, all that stuff. I'm not having as much fun as I am now, and it's because I really do feel like we're playing 40k, you know, the way that it's meant to be played. Just from like a hobby perspective and a gaming perspective. So,
well, that's all up to you, you know, the listener. It's all up to whoever is listening to this thing. Like, whatever your goals are, make sure you're achieving them. Make sure that you're like investing time into bring those to fruition.
yeah,
You know,
whatever your vision of the game is, like
get your battle bros like on hand, ready. Get them committed to the goals that you guys both share or all share. If you have more than one,
you're not an absolute weirdo like us.
If you have more than one who's not your brother.
But yeah, and it's a lot of fun to talk about too.
Mm-hmm.
So it just gives a lot of purpose to the whole thing. Just, like, you know, having like a goal in mind at the end, it's always a good thing. It really brings everything into focus.
For sure.
So yeah, well, I'm really excited for the next game. Can't wait to get all this painting done. Can't wait to see all this stuff, you know, in the display cabinet, on the table, rocking and rolling. So we'll be sharing all that kind of stuff with you guys on Instagram. By the time this episode goes up, we're going to have some fun posts for you guys to look at. So check us out on there. We'll do like a little addendum at the end of the show with all of our relevant links. But hope you guys are enjoying 10th edition. I know we are. So do you have anything else, dude?
Yeah, man. So to all the listeners out there, thank you guys for listening. Yeah. We've really enjoyed this podcast, as we've said. You know, we shared our hobby goals for the next episode, as well as the goals for the campaign and our plans for the future. You know, let us know in the comments section below, whether you're on YouTube, Instagram, or any other platforms. Also plan for, you know, some additional engagement on Instagram. We have some really strong plans for November. That's the best month of the year. The most amazing people were born during that time period. October, well, it just got left in the dust. Yeah, thank you all for listening to the episode of Battle Brothers 40k. I'm Vangel.
I'm Alex.
And we're wishing you glory in your hobby, storytelling, and your gaming. This is Battle Brothers 40k. We'll see you guys in the next one.
Later.